Okay. Okay. I'm Dr. Meghan Tierney. I'm an assistant professor of art history and museum studies here at Ursinus. And my specialty is in the art of the ancient Americas. So for instance, this semester I'm teaching a course on the ancient Andes, and we're focused on weaving, which I'm very excited about. I'm also teaching a course on shamanism and using shamanism as a lens for looking at art. I wrote my dissertation. My dissertation research is on Nazca ceramics. So yeah, I hope to integrate that into my coursework as well. I have not taught a museum studies course. Okay. My background is in museums, though. I started, my first job out of college was at a museum. I'm working for a collections manager at a small regional art and science museum. So, and I worked there for 5 years. And I also, during undergrad, I interned at several museums, some at the Smithsonian and in DC. So my background is in museums, but no, I've never taught official museum studies courses before coming to Ursinus. I did teach the Museum Studies 100 course in the spring, but that was certainly unique as we had to transition to online with COVID. So everything about my museum studies courses so far have been pretty unique. Yeah. So my interest in museums actually started during undergrad, and I wanted to be a conservator. That was my first, that was my first kind of interest in the field. And that, of course, required a lot of chemistry and biology and the sciences. And so I made some attempts there. But it brought me to art history, which is where I ultimately focused. But I took a museum studies intensive class in college over the winter term. So there's a lot of parallels to what the curatorial seminar has been doing this year here at Ursinus. And we traveled around to major museums and talked with people in all different positions. So I was kind of introduced to the museum world through that class. And then decided to apply for internships and do as many as I could. My first was amazingly at the Hirshhorn Museum in Washington, D.C. as part of the Smithsonian. And I got to work with the curator of paintings, and I created a finding aid. So it was actually quite lonely work, which is not typical of museum work, but I kind of sat in storage looking through a collection of photographs of Joseph Hirshhorn and all of his friends, collectors, and artists, and it opened up a whole world to me of all of the kind of behind the scenes of how museums are created and how artworks travel and change hands and the relationships behind them. I also had the opportunity I interned at the National Gallery of Art another summer, and there I worked in the slide library, so kind of cataloging and things like that. Again, sort of solitary, kind of almost more along the lines of library work, archives and things. And then I was lucky enough to be offered a job at the Bruce Museum of Art and Science in Greenwich, Connecticut, after I graduated. And there I worked for the collections manager, and the collections there are so eclectic. So I had the opportunities to be working with indigenous basketry and textiles, historical documents, ceramics, paintings, really you name it. So I got the best sort of hands-on education in that role. Ultimately, the museum was sort of growing, and I was promoted to registrar. So there I was more involved in the planning of exhibitions and the logistics. I had the opportunity to partner with the National Gallery of Ireland and travel to Dublin. So again, a lot of great experience. But ultimately I decided that if I wanted to do things on the creative side, curatorial or even be a director, I'd have to go back to grad school. And so that's what I did. So yeah, it seems like everything sort of led me to the point where I am, but really things just kind of grew from early interests. Yeah. Yeah, it was really, this has been a real learning experience for me. I do not specialize in contemporary art or modern art. So conceiving of and helping the students sort of frame contemporary work alongside the artist is a new experience for me. But one that I have really enjoyed. One, I think because we're lucky enough to work with an artist who also happens to be a professor in Shannon Collis. So she really deeply understood the project of helping guide the students through this process and along and talking with them and communicating to them her own process of art making as opposed to exhibition making. So it's been, again, unique and different, and it's really just my hope that people can come see it. And I think that's the hope always when you're curating. You put together, be it a group of objects or this unique installation, is that you're doing it for people to see and be in the same space with. So that hasn't changed, but the circumstances in which we find ourselves have changed. So it was a challenge, and I don't know that I particularly did it well, but that's for reflection later. I think the hardest part for me, especially coming from the experience of having worked in a small museum where, you have this limited staff, and so everyone kind of pitches in with whatever needs to happen. And there's real community, this kind of tight-knit community that no matter what, this exhibition will go on. And it was hard to create that kind of community in this environment. We had 3 students, which I think was a good thing, in that it just in terms of everyone's scheduling and managing that, it worked in our favor. But it was still really difficult to have the class communicating and learning kind of throughout the fall semester online, and not really knowing the space, not being able to come into the museum and just get comfortable being here, and kind of seeing how it operates and the rhythms of it. And then to have some of them come in and, some still have to be remote and us have to distance and be working in separate spaces. It was just this constant struggle to feel like we were really coming together around ideas and things. So, we're still really incredibly lucky that the artist was able to come and install at all. The circumstances for museums are not, they're closed absolutely to the public. They're not mounting new exhibitions. So we're very lucky and unique in the fact that we're still open. And that has to do, I think, mainly because we're a campus museum. And this campus has chosen to stay open and have students come back. So that community aspect, I think the teamwork and coming together has been really the hardest part. Logistically, we're making it happen, but how connected we've all really felt is a little bit different.
Yeah. Have the students seen the final product yet?
2 of them have.
Yeah. Because it looks beautiful. I think it really came together well.
It is. It is an overwhelming. I think that it's maybe not a very elegant word, but that, to me, being in that space is overwhelming. And I think because of because of all of those things, because people can't be together, because people, because I know that this isn't happening everywhere, that it feels extremely special because of all of those things. And it is, you're just overwhelmed. And not to mention because of the beauty of what the artist is presenting to us on such a, when you get to know a little bit more about the story of Strata and the subject matter and how it was created, is a deeply personal work. So I think I feel all of that when I go into the gallery, but also I feel my students' work and the months of sort of like preparation and thought that's gone into it. So yeah, I'm kind of overwhelmed by all of that and the moment that it all came together. It was pretty amazing. It struck me being able to come in here in the last few weeks to install Strata, how small museums and small campus museums and the communities that they are able to create and the conversations that they're able to facilitate are just such vibrant spaces. And I'm lucky enough also to be teaching in these spaces. Again, a unique circumstance that typically wouldn't necessarily happen. I'm teaching a course, as I mentioned, on shamanism, and where we talk about synesthetic experiences, right? Where you're seeing just seemingly kind of otherworldly things. And that has such deep connections to what I know is happening on the second floor with Strata, and the conversation we can have about the imagery in the Chuck Kelton exhibition, and these sort of surreal landscapes that he's creating. So it just being a part of this, the museum studies program, and Strata, and teaching the courses I can teach here, it just reaffirms for me the role of the campus museum as this locus for knowing and looking and experiencing incredible things. Bye, thanks. Come see Strata.